Good morning, Ashley. Looks like we're good to go.
Good morning. Yes, we are.
Great. If we could put no, let's do roll call first, please.
Anderson? Becerra?
Present. Ashley, maybe we should go give some more time to people to trickle in. So let's just, I'm gonna call this Public Works and Mobility meeting to order. And if we can share information on how to participate, that would be great, just briefly. Thanks, Ashley. That way we'll give people a chance to trickle in. If you are joining us today via Zoom webinar, please let us know if you would like to provide public comment, and we will acknowledge you and let you provide comment. You can always reach City Council by leaving a voicemail message at 406-552-6012, or you can email council at council@ci.missoula.mt. And these meetings are recorded, so if you cannot participate today, please know you can always find this information on our MCAT or Zoom, YouTube channel. And now if we could get a roll call for attendance, Ashley, please.
Sure. Anderson? Becerra?
Present.
Carlino?
Present.
Contos? Hess?
Present.
Jones?
Present.
Jordan?
Present.
Nugent?
Present.
Savage?
Present.
Cheryl?
Present.
Vasica? West? Anderson?
Present.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. And we have minutes to approve from May 4th. Any changes to the minutes? Okay, see none. Those will stand approved. Quick check on our public attendance. I don't see anyone to provide comments on items not on the agenda. So with that, we will move to our first item on the agenda. And because item number 1 and number 2 are connected, I would like Mark Todorovich, who will be providing the presentation, to cover both those topics so that we can have a better understanding of how they work together before we have questions. So Mark, go ahead and start your presentation on these two items, 3.1 and 3.2, please.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Good morning, Mark Todorovich, Construction Project Coordinator, Public Works and Mobility, Surface Transportation Engineering. This is consideration of a resolution to confirm final order for the assessment component for a right-of-way improvement project called Eaton Street Phase 1. If you drive or walk on Eaton Street, you can see the need for right-of-way improvements such as curb and sidewalk. Sidewalks are an essential component of public safety. Also, curb gutter and sumps provide for stormwater drainage, and these improvements will increase the life of the street. Phase 1 makes improvements on Eaton Street from South 7th Street West to South 13th Street West, and the south side of South 10th Street West from Eaton Street to Schilling Street, and is part of a larger project on Eaton Street. Phase 1 improvements include new curbing, curb bulb outs at certain intersections, sidewalk, curb ADA ramps, culverts, 1 bus pad, stormwater infrastructure, paving or concreting all driveways in the public right-of-way, roadway surfacing, and 1 sidewalk bridge over an irrigation ditch on the east side of Eaton Street at Spurgeon Road. This project will construct 3,106 linear feet or 0.6 miles of a new sidewalk and associated improvements, leading to enhanced pedestrian mobility options within the neighborhood. Eden Street project is ranked second out of the city sidewalk CIP projects. Eden is classified as a collector street and serves as a mountain line transit route. As a collector street, Eden has higher traffic volumes than local streets, and its crash history includes a few serious injury crashes. This project provides a pedestrian route to Franklin Park and nearby bus stops. The project area contains a mix of single-family and multifamily housing. Eden project was brought before City Council on July 19th, 2021, where Council approved a professional services agreement with IMA Corp for the design of Eden Street Phase 1 and conceptual design of Phase 2. Property owners within Phase 1 project were notified by letter on January 4th, 2022. The notification included quantities of the proposed improvements, cost estimates, city contact information, and pending City Council meeting dates. On January 24th, 2022, City Council approved the resolution to order Eden Street Phase 1. City staff bid this project, and bids were open on March 11th, 2022. In preparation for this meeting, another letter was sent to the property owners with revised estimates based on actual bid prices. The resolution to confirm final order Exhibit A lists all assessment properties that are in the project. Exhibit A also lists the property owner of each parcel, the physical address, assessment costs, subsidy costs, and revised total cost estimate after the subsidy assistance is applied. A portion of the cost of the improvements will be assessed to the adjacent property owners under the Special Improvements Assessment Program. All these parcels went up in cost based on the high bids and previous engineer's estimate. With recent city public works and mobility bids, we've seen it on average 15 to 20% higher than the engineer's estimate. These higher bids reflect current economic trends and uncertainties, including limited contractor availability, rising material and transportation costs, and labor shortages. So for this project, even though costs increased, most of the assessments remain below $3,500. However, 3 parcels in this project have a maximum $9,000 assessment for 1 2-family dwellings. One parcel has a $7,740 assessment, and one parcel has a $5,798 assessment. All these corner parcels except for corner parcels except for one. Corner parcels typically have approximately 3 times more sidewalk frontage and higher costs. One parcel was added more work. All 5 were really close to the 20,000 threshold with the estimated costs. And when the costs increased, the property owners pay 100% from that 20,000 amount up to 25,500 for a maximum out of pocket of $9,000. To date, no property owners included within this project have requested using the low-income or high assessment funding assistance programs. In addition to the assessment to adjacent property owners, the other funding sources were being utilized for this project are Road District Number 1, BARSA, and transportation impact fees. The city funding sources costs are 89.3% of the project total. The assessment costs are 10.7% of the project total. Voting yes allows the project to be constructed this year and pedestrian connections completed. This project will limit pedestrian risk and increase safety. Street improvements will define access locations, enhance stormwater drainage, and lengthen the life of the street. Voting no moves construction to an unprecedented time due to potential cost increases and budget constraints. I ask that you approve the recommended motion. This is consideration of a bid award for the right-of-way improvements called Eden Street Phase 1 from South 7th Street West to South 13th Street West. There were 2 bidders for this project. Knife River was the lowest responsible bidder with a bid of $1,141,208.81. The other bid received was just over $8,500 higher. The engineering estimate was $946,176.74. The low bidder and the engineer's estimate are $195,032 apart, with the low bid approximately 20% higher than the estimate. I ask that you approve the award of of construction of the contract to Knife River as written in the recommended motion. I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mark. And if you could take down or stop sharing your screen, that'd be great. That way I can see who has questions. Thank you. Are there any questions from council members on this item? I see Mike Nugent and then Amber.
Madam Chair, I don't have a question, but I'm happy to make the recommended motion.
Great, thank you. We have a motion on the floor. I'm going to look for members of the public. If you have questions about or comments about this item, please let us know by raising your hand and we will unmute you. I'm not seeing any hands up. Ms. Vasika, your hands up.
Yes, thank you. So I thank you, everyone, for whoever I emailed super late last night to add the email chain that one of the neighbors in this neighborhood and I and Kristen were having an exchange with. So he was, it was Bob Sewell at, what was his address? On a corner lot. Oh, I can't find his address right here, but he was originally at bid at $3,500, and then he got up to $9,000. And so he was really stressing out about that and said that the neighbors in his neighborhood actually did not want these sidewalks if it was going to be that expensive for them. And so he asked if we could postpone this or just cancel it altogether. So I have to be a voice for that person in my ward. And so I will vote no on this because I cannot make somebody pay $9,000 for a sidewalk that they don't want.
Okay. Miss Anderson, I think you're next.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I know that we discussed this the last time we talked about sidewalks, and I do believe it was on Eaton Street, about the different options for financing for someone like this resident who is concerned. So if Monty or Mark, sorry, could basically walk us through the various options that these homeowners have to finance, because I think they're multiple. I'd appreciate that.
Go ahead, Monty.
Yeah, so thanks, Monty Sipe, Construction Project Manager, Public Works and Mobility. So currently we have 3 options for the assessment, an 8, 12, or 20-year term. In addition to those assessment options, we have a low-income deferral and we have a high assessment deferral. The low-income deferral has some qualifiers. If they meet the requirements of the HUD 80 percentile of the median income for the Missoula statistical area, they can defer the full amount until time of sale, typically, of the home. The high assessment deferral is for any amount over $6,000. So the first $6,000 would be assessed over the 8, 12, and 20-year term, and then the remaining amount or principal amount could be deferred, once again, typically till the time of the sale of the home. The low income and the high assessment deferral are only for owner-occupied residential properties. And so those are our current options.
May I have a follow-up, Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so let's just continue with this particular scenario so that I understand it correctly. So this gentleman who we're referencing has now an assessed at $9,000, which is the maximum anyone can be assessed, no matter what the actual cost for the project is. And because that's considered a high assessment, this particular individual can stretch out the payments of $6,000 over 20 years. Can you provide what the interest rate, what it would be for that? And then that would leave the remaining 3,000 of the assessment due upon the sale of that home, whenever that may be.
Yeah, so I wanted to clarify that the $9,000 cap is only for 1 and 2 family dwellings. So we have a split funding model or subsidy assistance model. For 1 and 2 family, the cap is at 9,000. Multifamily, commercial, industrial is still under the previous subsidy calculation. So those properties are available for up to $20,000 worth of work. They'd be capped at 3,500, and then any amount over 200 or 20,000 would go back 100% on the property owner. So we don't have any multifamily, commercial, industrial. So these are all 1 and 2 family parcels in this project. The interest rate is determined at the time of the bond sale, but we've seen an average rate since I've been working here between 4.5% and 5.5% interest, and that is simple interest. So keep in mind, it's not like a home loan where they're pulling all the interest out on the top end or the front end. So they're only paying interest on the remaining principal, and they pay down principal biannually with their taxes, with their tax payments.
Great, thanks so much for that. So just to reiterate, to make sure I understand, it's, so, I mean, this person, as you said, there is no multifamily homes or multifamily or commercial in this, so everyone is capped at $9,000. And for those who are at the upper end of that, they can do the high assessment deferral. Or if there are someone who is income qualified for as being low income, they can defer the price of it or the cost of it until the time of their sale. And anyone else in between those two can decide to pay it over 8, 12, and 20-year terms on their taxes as a part of their taxes with a simple interest loan.
Right, that is correct. So if they qualify the low income deferral, regardless of the amount of the assessment, they can defer that entire amount. So, you know.
Right. I mean, so I guess the simple question is like, what is the overall community benefit for even putting in sidewalks? And why do we take on projects like this? I don't know who wants to answer that question, but
Monty, you want to take or Kevin or Jeremy want to take a stab at that answer? I know the answer, but I think it would be great coming from staff.
I would appreciate if Aaron could respond to this one.
Yeah, Aaron,
Yeah.
I didn't see that you were there, so go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think sidewalks are really important for a number of reasons in our I guess big picture community transportation planning. They provide safe facilities for people walking. They increase accessibility for people who have mobility, whether mobility or other disabilities that make driving or other modes a challenge. They also have been shown when we do neighborhood surveys. So in Franklin to the Fort neighborhood, specifically when we did neighborhood surveys as part of the Invest Health project, sidewalks were one of the highest priority interests from the neighborhood. And as we try to increase equity and safety and accessibility, sidewalks are a really critical, important piece of that. For this project specifically, it is on a transit corridor. And so all of the places where we have bus stops along Eaton Street, those are not accessible bus stops because we don't have the infrastructure in place for people to be able to, a sidewalk or a platform that is ADA accessible. It's also a collector street, so it sees higher volumes of traffic, and for people to be able to walk in and travel through the corridor safely, we really need that separation that a sidewalk provides. And then, we are trying to make investments in neighborhoods like Franklin to the Fort, where we have not seen historic investment in infrastructure like sidewalks. So all of those things, I think, combined provide a lot of benefit both to the neighborhood and to the broader community, and fit into our long range planning goals.
Great, thanks, Aaron. I would like to add that if you think of transportation as a pyramid, whether we drive or not, we are at one point or another, we're all pedestrians. And so we fill that bottom of that triangle, that pyramid. And planning for infrastructure to accommodate the greater number of users of the transportation system. I think it's really, really important. I am going to go to the public just because I want to make sure that if they have any questions that we are able to answer. So Jenny, Mish, if you can unmute. Oh, sorry, I think I muted you. No, there you are. Go ahead, please.
Well, good morning, everyone. And I want to thank all of you for serving on behalf of our community, both on council, on the Public Works Committee, and as staff. I live in the Franklin to Fort neighborhood, and I'm active in the Franklin to Fort Neighbors in Action group that is, really actively trying to do placemaking and figure out how to help all of you to help make our neighborhood have higher well-being. I just found out about this meeting last night, so but I am actually working on a grant now. So I've been looking at data about our neighborhood, and I'm really concerned that our neighborhood has more missing sidewalks than all but 2 neighborhoods in Missoula, and those 2 are Patty Canyon and Upper Rattlesnake. So like by at least 5 miles more, the next neighborhoods with missing sidewalks would be River Road, Grant Creek, and Southgate Triangle. So this is not like, I just kind of am shocked that there's a possibility of not going forward with this at this point, because sidewalks are so highly correlated with public health, and we have lower public health outcomes in our neighborhood. We particularly obesity, asthma, mental health, these things, these public health issues are very, sidewalks make a big difference because people can get out. If you can't walk, around the block, it's hard for kids to walk to school. If you're a wheelchair user, it's really hard to get around our neighborhood. And it's not equitable compared to other neighborhoods in Missoula. I understand that it does add cost for individual homeowners, and that we also have a very high poverty rate in our neighborhood. And so I appreciate that concern that was raised by a neighbor. But I also really recognize the incredible work that's been done to create a creative funding assistance program, and that the other neighborhoods that have more sidewalks didn't benefit from. So lots of other people around Missoula have had to pay higher amounts to get this same benefit. One peer-reviewed study says that resources like sidewalks and parks and green spaces can lower diabetes risk by 38%, which is huge, So I also found some data showing that our neighborhood has a higher percentage of workers who commute by bike or carpooling than other neighborhoods in Missoula. So we've got a lot of people wanting to use those sidewalks. Personally, I would be really prefer to see us find other alternative materials, because I think concrete is a really high carbon impact material. And so I want to express that concern as well. But at this point, I just want to express on behalf of lots of neighbors who, didn't hear about this meeting and aren't here, that as Aaron Wilson mentioned, our neighborhood needs this support for our health and our well-being. So thank you for hearing my concerns.
Thank you, Jenny, for your comments. I am going to go back to our council, and Kristen Jordan, go ahead.
Sorry, sometimes my mouse just disappears and I can't find it for a minute. This is a really sensitive topic for me. Because I agree with the caller, Jenny Mish. I know Jenny personally, and I know that she is exceptionally smart and well-researched, and I agree with absolutely everything she said. And I agree that our funding opportunities for these types of programs are incredible. More importantly, I also believe in the value of sidewalks and know that they are a determinant of health and that they're often correlated with higher outcomes in a lot of spaces. My concerns are that we started this project pre-pandemic. I don't know. Lots has changed for a lot of folks financially since the pandemic has started. I think that a lot of these costs are unaffordable for our constituents. Jenny did touch on the socioeconomics of our ward, and our ward is one of the poorer wards. We have a lot of folks who are living paycheck to paycheck. I would really like to see the city step in and cover these costs. What I would propose doing is adding up all of the proposed costs and doing a budget amendment to cover these costs for constituents because sidewalks are critical and essential. But given the fact that we've had a pandemic and that costs have changed, and we're starting to hear from some constituents who are concerned about this out-of-pocket cost, and the fact that city sidewalks are actually a city resource makes me feel very strongly that until we find a different way to pay for these, I cannot vote for this because of the financial impact on the constituents. And so I wanted to offer those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra, go ahead.
Thanks. I absolutely have to agree with my ward mate. We can all agree that sidewalks are fantastic. I mean, I love sidewalks. And ever since I had a child, now that I'm pushing a stroller around, I absolutely know the benefit of sidewalks. But on that same note, now that I have a child, I understand a tight budget. And so even though it's just a 20-year loan at just 4.5% interest, that's still money that they did not go, that's money that they don't want to leave their wallets, and they didn't ask for it. And I have to be on the side of my constituents on this one. And I stand by what I said earlier, and I will not be supporting this.
I had a note from Ms. Becerra that her computer was about to automatically update. So I'm going to step in for a minute for her while she grabs a different device and rejoins us. Daniel, you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that Jenny said as well about changing the materials of our sidewalks and looking into equitable solutions and trying to build more sidewalks. And I think there's no doubt that we absolutely need sidewalks here and more sidewalks across the Franklin to the Fort neighborhood. And I just want our city budget to reflect our community's values. I think our community really values sidewalks, and I think there's a consensus on council that sidewalks are great too. And I just don't like how this has to be a contentious issue. So I plan to continue working on trying to create a new funding mechanism, and also to do a budget amendment to help cover, to fully fund sidewalks. You know, I think sometimes these costs up to $9,000 are also just going to get passed right on to renters. Most of the people that would reach the 80% area median income to opt out of having to pay that assessment fee are renters, and their landlord is just going to pass that cost on to them. So they don't really have a say in getting rid of that cost. But most of all, I guess I just think we need to get new materials for our sidewalks that isn't concrete in the future, a new funding mechanism, and we need to fully fund sidewalks in our general budget so we can create more sidewalks across the city. But I guess I just wanted to comment just to justify my no vote, because I just don't think people should be being assessed $9,000 for sidewalks, and it does have a ripple effect with negative impacts. And I think this is something that we should just take on in the budget. Like the number one thing in the budget is community safety through our police and fire, et cetera. And I think sidewalks is a huge part of our community safety that is not getting funded yet. So I plan to try and fund it.
Thanks. Mike?
Thanks. I'm looking at Exhibit A, I believe. Resolution to confirm order Exhibit A. It's the spreadsheet with all the addresses. Is the final column revised total cost estimate in yellow? Is that the cost for the homeowner, each one? Do we have any idea what that column adds up to? Because my colleagues who I really appreciate talking about this, Councilwoman Jordan and Councilman Carlino and Councilwoman Vasika, I want more information every time we look at this on like what we're actually talking about if we move this to the public, to the actual budget. So does somebody have a total for that column? Anybody?
I'm looking.
Thanks, Monty.
Okay, thanks.
Well,
Monty,
he's
do you
looking at
wanna
that. I do
follow
have
up?
another question.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike, and then we can come back.
So
to that.
if Mr. Sewell, who's corresponding with Councilwoman Jordan, Councilwoman Vasika, if his number is 9,000, and he chose not to defer the 3,000, anything like that, is he able to finance the whole 9,000 over 20 years?
Oh, it looks like Monty has stepped away.
The answer,
Kevin,
I'll jump in. It's
Okay.
yes, you can finance the entire 9,000.
And you can move on while they're doing the math, but I just want to know the answer to that question. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good. We'll come back to you, Mike. Amber?
Yeah, I think actually my question was right along with Mike's. Just, I do, first of all, I don't think I need to articulate how critical sidewalks are for neighborhoods, for all the equity, safety, multimodal, we've all talked about that. So I don't need to say that again. And I do agree with Daniel. I would love as we go, I know that this has been in discussions and that they are looking at this about better materials for sidewalks, but I also know that right now that is not a possibility. But I really would urge as we move forward, and if I know there's been a lot of discussion, if we see a referral around sidewalks and a real solution, I would love to see that. I would love to have something better than concrete. I don't think that is really a possibility, but I think what Mike is saying is trying to get at, not trying to get out, but asking the question around is I will be very interested in these other funding sources because I know that we have done so much research on that in the past, and a lot of time and energy went into developing the program that we currently have. I'm not saying it's flawless. I don't really know. Things have changed. We always have room to revisit anything that we've done and make improvements. So I want to be clear on that. But I think the bottom line is, if we put all of our sidewalks onto our property owners throughout the city, it is going to be, it's going to be a shocking increase to property taxes. And I think it will be absolutely massive, and it will slow that down, the process of that down years and years and years. So I'm going to vote for this. I'm going to continue to support the sidewalks program as it is currently, stands. If there are improvements that come along, and if we see a better program, I will absolutely look into. I will consider that and ask questions on it. But right now, we need to get sidewalks done. These neighborhoods deserve sidewalks. The sidewalks are not for the homeowner as much as they are for the community and the neighborhood. So I'm happy to support it. I want to tell staff that I really appreciate that you work under the current guidelines that we have. We've tasked you with those guidelines. You bring forward good projects around those guidelines. And until those guidelines change, I believe we need to support what we have tasked our very qualified staff in bringing forward to us. And we owe it to these neighborhoods, as Jenny said, to get these sidewalks in.
Thanks, Amber. It looks like Mirta is back. I'm going to go to Monty, and then I'll pass it back over to Mirta. And Monty is just, Mirta, for your benefit, Monty's just answering a question that Mike had. So Monty?
Yeah, so the assessment total based on the bid price is $109,219. That's a total amongst all property owners.
Thanks.
Thank you, Monty, and thanks, Jordan. I never really left. I think I was able to trick my computer into waiting for an update, but so I've been listening. Jennifer, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo some of the comments that my colleagues have mentioned. And really just at the end of the day, for me, a vote for sidewalks is a vote for equity in a neighborhood that desperately needs equitable solutions. I think Franklin to Fort is much like the neighborhood I live in Ward 1 on the north side. And there are just gaps in equity all over the place. And I think I am 100% supportive of having a policy discussion about sidewalks, but this is a project discussion. So I will be voting for this today. And I think that, moving forward, I would, as we look at the budget, as we kind of go into those discussions, happy to have a conversation about what, a sidewalk policy could look like. But I also know that there have been a lot of smart people who have looked at the budget and who have looked at this sidewalk policy and have worked hard to make it what it is, and also agree that it may not be perfect. So I just wanted to say that, and that I will be happy to vote for an equitable solution in Franklin to Fort.
Thanks, Jennifer. Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to follow up now on the question I asked. Monty, did you say 119,000?
$109,219.
109,000. And I know that we've talked about other projects with sidewalks, because it feels like we talk about sidewalks every other week. So how many other sidewalk projects are there that we are currently out on bid for this construction season?
This is the only one that we have bid, and I believe we don't intend to bid any other projects for this year.
Okay, so the total cost that the taxpayers of Missoula directly assessed is that 109,000 this year.
That's correct.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I would just kind of comment, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And if there are any other ideas out there, my concern is that if we think that we can produce the same amount of sidewalks and just shift it into the general fund, we're going to end up producing less sidewalks, which is going to kind of go against the goal that this city council has set, the stuff that we talked about just Monday in public comment, and previous times. But if there's another mechanism out there, I'm certainly open to it. I really don't love the idea of putting $9,000 on a homeowner or $3,700 on a homeowner. I do know that $9,000 spread out over the 20-year option is under $500 a year, which is a burden, but isn't a terrible burden in the broad scheme of things. And I can say with certainty that the value added to the home from the sidewalks will go up by more than $9,000 in that time period. So those are just some thoughts.
Thanks, Mike. Daniel.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I mean, $109,000, we spend that much on like an email security system or, a lot of like other random things, but I think sidewalks are super important. And I also just want to point out that property taxes are going up no matter what we do, because they're based off of property assessments. The city council could not do anything to help sidewalks and the property taxes are still going to go up. I think we need to make this a priority in our budget to fully fund sidewalks. So I'm glad that a lot of councilors want to have that conversation, and I'm happy to work with anybody who wants to try and make it happen together. And hopefully we can secure more funding to build more sidewalks and not have to sacrifice. But $109,000 for a whole year of assessments is not very much at all in the grand scheme of things. And I think it needs to be a priority to put a lot more funding towards sidewalks in Missoula.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. Gwen, go ahead.
I'm happy to support this today. As Jennifer said, this is a project discussion, not a policy discussion. And if we ultimately have that policy discussion, I think that would be great for council to dive into that. But I just want to point out, as we've revised our sidewalk program over the years and our financing mechanisms for it, we have cut back on capacity. We're doing less now, a lot less. And it is a safety issue. It gets people off the street where they're walking, where it's dangerous. It has huge impact on health. So we are doing less now, and we are coming up against Initiative 105 caps in terms of raising taxes. Just because property values will go up, that does not necessarily translate into a bigger city budget, which is a much bigger, complicated discussion. But there will be trade-offs. And when I look at the great needs in this city, for some homeowners to have pretty reasonable assessments when their property value is going to go up significantly is probably less of a priority for me than some of our other greatly pressing needs. So I look forward to the policy discussion. And I do think part of that policy discussion will be looking at the history of all of this and what other neighborhoods have done and paid over the years. So in the meantime, happy to support this.
Great, thank you. Jordan, and then I see one more hand up, and we still have 2 more items to cover during this committee. So I'm gonna try to wrap it up soon after that. Jordan, go ahead.
Thanks. I just want to note for the record that there are city road district funds. Those are city tax funds that go towards sidewalks. I want that to be clear on the record. I believe those have been over $400,000 a year for the last several cycles. As recent as a few years ago, those were more like $200,000 a year. So there is an increase in city tax dollars going to sidewalks, as well as sidewalks being built as a function of other projects, be those through MRA or other types of construction as well.
Thanks, Jordan, for pointing that out. Yes, I think through a different program, the MRA using TIF funds also pays for a lot of sidewalks in different neighborhoods that are qualifying. I'm going to quickly move to our public, Grace United Methodist. I'm going to unmute you so that you can provide comments, okay?
Thank you. This is Bill Barksdale, and I am working with the Franklin and Fort Neighbors in Action group, and I really appreciate everyone's concern about the cost to the homeowners. However, we have to remember you guys have been working on this for 3 years, and sidewalk projects take a long time to cultivate, bid out, and to complete. And I would affiliate myself, and I think many of our colleagues in the Neighbors in Action group, with the understanding that today's vote is about this particular project and developing equity. In our neighborhood, we have 7,800 people in our neighborhood, and this is approximately, I'm not sure how many, 15, 20, 25 neighbors. And we're trying to develop equity among all 7,800. So please reconsider and vote yes.
Thank you so much for your comments. Going to mute. Okay. Thank you for that. And let's see. Kristen, go ahead. You're muted.
I lowered my hand. I didn't unmute. Thanks. I guess I just wanted to speak a little bit to something that I feel is happening, which is kind of a false choice. I think that we have spent a lot of time in the past working on this policy. It has been years in the making, and it is way better than it used to be. I think that when we talk about like equity and whatnot, we're talking about a neighborhood that has a lot of folks who are struggling to get by. I think it's really important for us to be very deliberate in our decision making when we're calling on folks who are from a generally lower socioeconomic place, to ask them to put these types of bills onto their credit history, and something that will show up and possibly prevent them from accessing other types of credit. Where I'm concerned about the false choice is that we do have other mechanisms to pay for things like this. And I also appreciate the conversation between policy and implementation. I think that we're always going to be having policy conversations, even when we're talking about implementing a certain piece of a policy. We're having a policy conversation right now about the fact that we are about to provide assessments for neighbors who generally come from a lower socioeconomic part of town on a project that is desperately needed for an amount of $110,000. And I know for a fact that we can find money elsewhere in the budget. And I also know that this conversation has been going on for years. And I'm heartened to hear from people in my ward who are for this project. I am totally for this project. The only difference is I do not want to place the burden to pay for these projects on my constituents who are struggling right now, who have been through a pandemic and who have not been reassessed as far as their ability to pay for this and their interest in paying for this. That's where I am sitting at this moment. We are asking people to spend a ton of money that's going to affect their credit histories. And I know $500 doesn't sound like a lot to some folks over a year. I'm currently in a financial situation right now where $500 over the year is a tight squeeze. I am living in that space right now. It's not anything I chose to do. It is not anything I'm proud of. It's the first time in my life where I've been in this situation, and it is because of outcomes of the pandemic. And I would like to ask my council mates to consider that this project is critical. It's essential. The work that staff have done is incredible. This is by no means an assessment on their ability to do an amazing job. It has to do with the fact that I represent people who voted for me to advocate for them. And this is a project that is going to cause some financial harm. And I would just want to put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just add that I appreciate the conversation. A lot has gone into getting our policy to where it is right now. We have for a few years now tried to look at funding our sidewalks through a lens of equity, taking into consideration health, mental health, physical health, safety. And this is something the neighborhood has been wanting to have accomplished in their neighborhood for a long time. They have participated in several public and community processes, and the city is listening to those requests and concerns. And even prior to the pandemic, I think we all who have been sitting on council for a few years now have had to make these tough decisions about looking at the public benefit of some of these tough decisions. And I completely understand Ward 6 representatives and how tough this is for you. But I think that this particular project has been in place for a long time, and it's out, ready to be implemented. And so I will be in full support of it. Very quickly, Stacy.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate all the comments on it. And I guess I just, from a procedural standpoint, I'm voting yes today because I support this project. And I think that there's been a lot of hard work put into over time. And I've been a part of those discussions as we've changed the, funding lens around sidewalks. But if a majority of council members were to vote no today on this project, it basically means that this sidewalk project is dead, not that another funding source will come about for it. So it basically doesn't change. And I think this gets back to what Ms. Jones and Ms. Savage were saying is then it doesn't change the underlying policy that the city staff is marching under. It just basically stops this project. And then city staff is left with no direction, and this project isn't going to happen. There won't be these sidewalks. And it just it doesn't automatically trigger some of the things that we're discussing of wanting to structurally change. It basically just stops this project. And I, hope that at some point in time, the economic situation changes where prices and labor and everything goes and levels out and begins to go down, but that's not necessarily in our immediate future. And the longer we delay this project, the more expensive it's going to be for everyone involved. So, it is, and I'm there by voting no on this project. And if a majority of us did that, it doesn't actually accomplish the goals of getting these sidewalks. It just kills this particular project. And then the policy decisions, the policy change to how we do this still has to happen. And that takes months, if not years, and, to go into, and staff doesn't have the capacity to do that. So I just, want to put that on the record. So that it's, a consideration for as we kind of decide, what our votes mean, both like existentially as well as like literally for what does it mean for this exact project.
Okay, I'm starting to sweat bullets here, guys, because we have two more items to cover. So Sandra, unless it's super short, I don't want to leave you with your hand up. So go ahead.
But yeah, I'll be super quick. Something that Stacy said, I need to reply to it. There's a problem with today's society, and like we have to do stuff all the time and we have to move forward. Like there's nothing wrong with waiting. There's nothing wrong with this project not moving forward. The staff put a lot of work and a lot of hard effort into this. And yeah, that it is a bummer that they put all this work into it if we do say no to this, but it's not going to kill anyone. Whereas this burden on the homeowner might just be a huge burden to them. So I just wanted to reply to Stacey.
Okay. Appreciate all the comments and concerns. I believe Mike Nugent, you made the recommended motion? Yes, okay. So we have a motion on the floor. I'll take public comment just in case there's anything else on this item. I don't see any hands up, so we will go to a roll call vote, please, Ashley.
Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Carlino,
No.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
No.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika.
No.
That is 7 yeses and 3 nos.
Okay, so the motion passes, but I will ask the no votes whether there should be, you want this on committee reports? Or is there our new rule that we just put it on committee reports now? Can't remember.
I would prefer it be on committee reports regardless.
Okay.
Thanks.
So committee reports it is. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mark, Monty, Kevin, everyone who's worked on this project. I appreciate your patience and all your work on it. So with that, we will move to item number 3.3, and that's a professional services agreement amendment for Eaton. No, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong. An ordinance amending the Missoula Municipal Code, chapter 13.02 by repealing 13.02.090 and establishing 13.02.091. And Logan McInnes is here to present.
Thank you, Mirta. So what's going on here is, historically wastewater has used the tax lien process to collect past due amounts on wastewater accounts. And water in the past, prior to city ownership, used a shutoff process to collect bills. And so with the pandemic occurring, we have not been shutting off water to folks. So as you might imagine, we have some fairly sizable water bills that are accumulating past due amounts. So the goal here is to use the same process that's long been used for, for wastewater collections to try to get payment, but obviously at the end of the day, if payment's not received, to go through the Department of Revenue as allowed by Montana codes annotated to file tax liens against the properties. So the modifications to the code are just kind of reflecting those desired changes. 1302-090. And I guess there's a kind of a related issue that tenants, for wastewater, we created this request to bill tenant form where an owner could request the bill to go in the name of the tenant. Those forms don't exist for thousands of water customers that are tenants. So, the state law MCA 713-4309 basically says the property owner is responsible for charges that occur on their property. So, I guess what we're doing is we're deleting section 1302-090, which talked about this request to bill tenant form, and basically moving that similar language into 1302-091, but then provide some more specificity to how we're going to go about doing this. There is a process prescribed by the MCA that you have to send a letter in by, I think, by July 1st of each year to notify the property owner of the unpaid amounts, and then, let them know that they have 30 days to make payment, or we would work with the Department of Revenue to create those tax liens. I guess section B of 1302-091 is just that language that we've deleted out of 1302-090 about the request to bill tenant forms. So these forms are technically not required. MCA allows us to collect from the property owner, but we think it makes sense to sort of put the owner and tenant on notice, I guess, that, if an owner wants the tenant to pay the bills, that's fine. It just, by going through this form, then it makes them more aware that they would be responsible for those bills if their tenants don't pay them. So those are the changes. We don't unfortunately have a whole lot of time. I guess maybe we were a little caught off guard that we needed to modify the city code. I wouldn't say it was a necessity. It's more of a making property owners aware of what the state law already allows us to do. So anyways, like I said, these letters have to go out in July. The actual tax liens wouldn't be filed until September or October. So we do have time for the process to work itself out if we get this approved by city council. Maybe a couple more things. In the past, wastewater has leaned on past due amounts as low as $30 if they're 90 days past due. That seemed a little bit low, to a small number to go through the expense of dealing with the Department of Revenue. So we're proposing that if a customer is past due $200 in combination for their water, wastewater, and stormwater services for more than 90 days, that those are the accounts that would be forwarded to the Department of Revenue for the tax liens. So that's basically what we're doing here, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Logan. Stacy.
Thanks so much, Logan. I was curious about the a lien amount, $200. How did you guys come up with that?
I can't say there was a whole lot of, I guess a group of us kind of debated, well, what should the number be? There's a fair amount of cost involved in processing these. $30 was what was present for wastewater. That seemed kind of low. So I guess I don't have a really good answer. It's a number that a group of us thought sounded like a reasonable combined total for past due utility bills to go through this effort to try to collect.
Right. I mean, to me, that actually still seems a little low. And, especially in the summertime, I mean, some of us end up with surprisingly large water bills. And that, I mean, I guess it is 90 days, but $200 to put a lien, given all that it goes into it, I think is a pretty low amount. So that's just my feedback. I think, something higher, like 500 or something like that, especially when you're thinking about all three of those departments combined, and, going into summer and things like that. So, and especially if we're encouraging people to water their boulevard trees and all the things that go into that. So a lien is a pretty harsh remedy, and I would hope that it would be for a higher amount of past due. Thanks.
I believe we'll have time to think about this a little more. I'm trying to move us along. We are out of time, actually. This is, the motion is to set a public hearing on the 16th. Is that right, Logan?
I believe that's,
Okay. So I do.
well,
need
excuse me.
a-
So
Yeah.
looking back to the referral, I think it said the council would set the hearing date on the 16th, right? And then the hearing would be on June 6th.
Okay, so this is informational.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Says the recommended motion for May 16th to set a public hearing for June 6th with a final vote, the final reading on June 13th.
So I guess it's not informational, right? Like we are trying to, we do need action to set the hearing.
Right, that's how I understand it.
Yeah.
So would anyone like to make that recommended motion? Stacy, your hand's up. No, okay. Katie, I'm gonna go to Katie because she's gonna set me straight on, I'm sure, a number of things. Go ahead, Katie.
I think you're just gonna move it to Monday night's agenda, and then Monday night you set the public hearing.
Great. Okay, so we do still need a motion. Sandra.
Thanks. I'll make the recommended motion and may I speak to it?
Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to say I actually agree with my colleague Stacy on this one. A lien is very hard to put on a homeowner, so I'm very happy to set the public hearing so that we can hear from our constituents on this.
Great. We have a motion on the floor. Public, if any comment on the motion, let us know. Don't see any. So we will take a roll call vote on this item 3.4.
Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika.
Yes.
Okay.
That is 10 yeses and 0 nos.
Great. That will be on our consent agenda. And I know we're out of time, but I need to get some clarifications on the motions that we made. Mark presented on items 3.1 and 3.2. I just want to make sure that our motion put on the floor by Mike Nugent was for those two items, and what we voted on was for those two items. Is that correct?
That was my intent, Madam Chair.
Okay. Katie, can you set me straight on this?
I think we missed 3.3.
Yes, and that was my
Am I right,
next.
Kevin? Yeah, he's shaking his head. Okay.
Yes, and that was my next.
So Kevin, we need to quickly do that one item because it's tied to everything else. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Mark is here to present that too, real quick, Mark.
Just a minute, Mark. Gwen? Okay. Apologies, everyone. I know we're over time, but we need to take care of this. I should have known you love to talk about sidewalks and budget, accordingly. So apologies. Go ahead, Mark.
Mark Todorovich, Construction Project Coordinator, Public Works and Mobility, Surface Transportation Engineering. This is consideration for a professional services agreement, amendment number 1 with IMA Corp. For the Eden Street, South 7th Street West to Sussex Avenue project. This project is currently planned to be constructed in 2 phases. The first phase is located on Eden Street from 7th Street West to South 13th Street West, and the south side of South 10th Street West from Eden Street to Schilling Street. The second phase is located on Eden Street from South 13th Street West to Sussex Avenue. City Council approved the IMEG original professional services agreement on July 19, 2021. The original scope of this project, as previously mentioned, final design for phase 1 and conceptual design for phase 2 included engineering fees of $92,965. This amendment includes a construction staking and construction engineering for phase 1 and final design for phase 2. The phase 1 consultant work totals $35,295. Final design for phase 2 totals $38,000 for a total of $73,295. This amendment is being funded through Road District Number 1, BARSA, and transportation impact fees. Phase 1 consultant work will take place this summer. Phase 2 design work will be completed this winter. Public Works and Mobility will be presenting IMEG amendment number 2 for construction staking for phase 2 once phase 2 bidding is complete. Staff is choosing to bring forward these staking and construction services amendments at the time of construction to correctly scale the services to the final design of the project. Doing so mitigates the need to bring subsequent amendments to City Council. I ask that you approve the professional services amendment as written in the recommended motion. I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mark. You win the prize for speedy presentation today. Okay, Gwen, go ahead.
In the interest of time, I'll just make the motion. We're supposed to have my committee starting at 10:40, which we can start a little bit late, but I'm just putting it on the floor.
Thank you. I apologize. I should be fired from this chair of Public Works. I appreciate that, and apologies for taking over time. We have a motion on the floor. Please let us know in the public if you have any comment on this. Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote, please.
Anderson,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika.
Yes.
Okay, that's 10 yeses and 0 nos.
Okay, so that will go on our consent agenda. Thank you, everyone. Apologies for going over time. Thank you to all the staff for your work. Appreciate it. And with that,